Hey guys, it's Owl's Dragon, and today we're attempting a challenge on a completely different type of game, Battlefront 2, which I absolutely love, so let's not waste any time. Can you beat Star Wars Battlefront 2 without using a blaster? But before that, let me explain the rules. Rule number 1, I can't use any blaster and or gun, including abilities like Vanguard or Pulse Cannon. Number 2, I can use vehicles like Starfighters or AT-ATs for missions they are available. Lastly, number 3, I can use abilities like grenades or shields, just not abilities that give you a blaster like Vanguard. Now with the rules out of the way, let's get into the video. So we start out in an interrogation room with some rebels, but luckily our droid boy has remote control capabilities, so we sneak past some guards in outrageously dark vents to get to Iden. Luckily for our challenge, we don't even have a blaster to start out with, so the beginning actually plays a lot like a stealth game, which was actually really fun. Until we get a blaster, that is. After we get a blaster, we run into the first bruh moment of this challenge. There's a shit ton of guards as soon as we get the blaster. I assumed to have us try it out, but not for this challenge. I found that hit and run tactics worked the best, and after a couple of tries, I managed to get through them all. But that wasn't all of the guards. So after that horde, I decided to continue my hit and run tactics and decided to run past any guards I could, until I made it to an escape pod and beat the first mission of this challenge. The second mission takes us to Endor, where it starts out stealthily until they got reinforcements, which is bro moment number 2. Luckily the grenades made this a little bit easier, but it took a couple of tries regardless. Once we finally beat them, we take a little break until the Death Star blew up, and instead of freaking out like a normal person, they say break time's over and head to kill more rebels. The rest of the rebels on Endor were taken out after a couple of tries of using the same old hit and run tactics and grenades, until an AT-ST comes out of nowhere. This is a certified bro moment number 3, but luckily I had unlocked the shield, which allowed me to take a few shots from it before lobbing grenades. And after like 20 minutes of chucking grenades and a little NPC help, it finally blew up. After destroying the AT-ST, we head out for a TIE fighter to get off Endor. But there are some rebels that need killing, so the classic grenades and punches eventually get us to it. Then luckily the rest of the second mission is using a TIE fighter, where we take down a few fighters and go back to Space Hitler, also known as Iden's Papa. Mission 3 starts out on a TIE fighter, so again we don't have to worry about the challenge because it's not a blaster, and we let loose destroying some starfighters. And after a bit, we make our way onto the rebel ship where it's back to running and punching our way through. But after murdering a whole bunch of rebels, the game wants us to shoot some cooling cells, which is bro moment number 4. But luckily because I'm big brain, I kill myself and switch to a grenade. And after a couple grenade throws, I destroy the cooling cells without shooting my blaster and make it back to my ship. Luckily the rest of the mission is a TIE fighter mission, so I kill some more rebels and start the next mission. Luckily for us, the entire 4th mission is played entirely as Luke Skywalker, who doesn't use a blaster. So after killing a whole bunch of stormtroopers on a murderous rampage, we find Papa Del and save him and become best buddies. And since we're best buddies, I take care of his roach problem and find a neat compass. Then Papa Del goes back to his ship to start the next mission. The 5th mission starts in a Nazi concentration camp. Oh whoops, I mean Vardos, and after Iden realizes that space Nazis are the bad guys, she tries to save some civilians, but then Hask, the guy who's been Iden's sidekick for most of the game so far, is like, nah, I want to be a space Nazi. But then Iden just shoots him in the leg and continues helping. After we leave the building in which we shot Hask, there's a lot of stormtroopers, but luckily there's a new turret ability for only this mission, which basically shoots the stormtroopers for me and I get by them pretty quickly. There were quite a bit of stormtroopers until the next stage of the mission, so I kept using the turret, punches, and my shield to get through them. It takes quite a long time due to the sheer number of the troopers, but eventually we make it to an AT-AT, which we hijack to get back to our ships.
Hey, we have Imperial comms again.
After demolishing our way through AT-STs and a buttload of stormtroopers in the AT-AT, we finally make it back to our ship, but we can't immediately board the ship because of another buttload of stormtroopers. So after killing all of them with our bare hands, we make it onto the next ship and head for the nearest rebel ship to surrender. But before we can, Iden shoots at some stormtroopers and ends this whole challenge like a dumbass. Obviously though, this doesn't count because it's a cutscene. On the rebel ship, we meet Lando, and then he's like, okay, now get in an X-Wing and go to town. So the sixth mission is completely in the X-Wing, and we use it to destroy some stuff and help Naboo. So that was definitely the easiest mission so far in this challenge. For the seventh mission though, we play as Leia to help Naboo by fisting a whole bunch of stormtroopers. And after defeating some, we run into bro moment number 5, which is another ATST. So my first instinct is to go punch it, but that doesn't go so well. But the second time through, it kind of just blows up on its own, so I guess that was a false alarm bro moment. After that, we make it to the front line of Naboo right in front of the palace and get absolutely wrecked by the amount of stormtroopers there. Until after a few tries, we make it back to the palace and set off an EMP, which takes down the Empire. And after apologizing to Leia for the countless rebels we killed, she's like, it's all good, and asks us to find her hubby, Han Solo. The eighth mission is played as Han Solo, and we have to go find a bearded guy who helps you get information about Kashyyyk. But before we get that information, of course we have to take down some troopers, but actually it was quite hard and took a couple of tries, but after using his grenades and luck, I make it to the Falcon after taking down countless stormtroopers. Once we make it back to the Falcon, it's covered with more stormtroopers, so after a few more tries I managed to take them out and board the Falcon. The rest of this mission is played piloting the Falcon, and we take down some TIE fighters with some help from Iden, who came to find us. After Iden gets Han back to the Republic, she heads out to find and capture Space Hitler, so when we get to the next planet in Mission 9, we take out a whole bunch of troopers and pull a New Hope to infiltrate the tower. But then we figure out quickly that it's a trap and get cornered by a TIE fighter. But then I use the good old strategy of getting the hell out of there and run. When we finally make it out of the tower, there's an absolute shit ton of stormtroopers and an ATST, but I noticed that the marker says reach, so I decided to just run past them to get to the objective, and it works, and we steal a cloud car and finish the rest of the mission in it. Mission 10 is played as Lando on Solist, and we start out by forcing our way into a weapons factory, and with a combination of running and punching, we make it to the control room. But since Lando's a dumbass, he doesn't know how to do it and runs to sabotage the factory by overflowing the lava. But this was not an easy feat. There were tons of troopers, but after a ton of fails, I finally make my way through and sabotage the factory. But when running out of the factory, the real bro moment 5 comes into play. To make a bridge over a small gap, you have to shoot a control panel. I tried a whole bunch of methods, but since I can't switch Lando's abilities, I can't choose a grenade and I have to shoot it. So this is a failure of the challenge, but since I'm an overachiever, I decided to finish the game to see how many times you have to shoot your blaster. So shot count 1. So after escaping the factory, we go with Shriv, the blue alien guy, and an ATST to make it off the planet. But luckily, right before it gets engulfed in lava, Iden comes to save us like a beast. After that mission comes the 11th mission on Jakku. As soon as I land my X-Wing, I'm surrounded by AT-ATs, and the only way for me to take them down is through a very buggy orbital strike that ends up pissing me off severely more than a couple of times. Once I finally take down the AT-ATs, I head for the next area in my X-Wing, where I take down quite a few troopers until a TIE fighter comes out of nowhere and becomes bro moment number 6. My original strategy is to chuck grenades like I did with the AT-ST, but that didn't really work this time. So I did what any rational person would do and put on my shield and booked it. This strategy surprisingly worked, and I ended up blowing up the hangar. Then after blowing it up, I booked it back to my X-Wing. The next stage was just using the X-Wing, so I take down some TIE fighters and crashed into the last stage, pop a Space Hitler's ship. The troopers on the outside of the ship were actually pretty tough, and it takes a few tries to get through, but eventually I get inside of the ship. Inside the ship, I try to save Papa Space Hitler, but he's like, nah, get out, and sends me into an escape pod, and as soon as we're out, Papa Del gets some action, and the story ends. Just kidding, the last mission consists of playing as Kylo Ren in old Papa Del's mind, and we basically kill his memories. Boy, I wish he would do that for me, I sure have some things I want to forget. But in the end, Hask is like, ka-chow, I'm alive, and kills Papa Del. And no, I did not cry at this part, stop asking. But that's the main story. There is a tiny post-game campaign, and since you only get the best on this channel, of course I did it. In the first mission, Iden's old now, and you can see Papa Del's daughter, Zay. The entirety of the first mission is in an X-Wing in a Thula, so no problems there, and we cruise right into Mission 2. Mission 2 sends us back to Vardos, and we walk back to the tower where we shot Hask. And guess what? Hask is there and he's like, time to kill your family, so he shoots down Zay's ship and you search Vardas to find her. On this mission, there are a lot of ATRTs around, so we take one for the challenge ahead, which is actually bro moment number 7. At the first crash site, there's an ATST, and since there was little NPC support, I had to rely only on myself, but luckily the ATRT came in handy and I blew it up on the second try. And of course Zay's not in that crash zone because nothing can be easy, right? The second area just had more stormtroopers, but at this point I got pretty good at killing these guys, so the second escape pod was easy to secure. But of course she's not in that one either, but at the last pod is definitely the biggest bro moment, 2 ATSTs at one time. Luckily this time I did have a little NPC support, but the NPCs were also shooting at me, so that was no bueno. But after enough grenades, both fell and we ended up saving Zay. After we save Zay, we fly up to Hask's ship to get our revenge, and after taking down a few TIE fighters, we make our way inside the ship. The troopers inside were no easy feat, and it took a couple of tries using the hit and run method even with the shield and grenades. So then Iden finds some information on the First Order before deciding to blow up the ship, so we go to protect Zay, who sets up the explosives. This turns out to be really hard because there are unreachable stormtroopers, but luckily I managed to throw grenades just right until she can set up the explosives. After she's done, we go to help set up the last explosive, but Hask comes in and takes Zay at gunpoint, and he throws her off the edge, and here comes bro moment 8. In order to finish the story, we have to shoot Hask with a blaster provided by Zay, so that leaves the shot counter at 2. After you kill Hask, it turns out Iden was shot, and she dies in her daughter's arms. So that was the story, now let's answer the question. Can you beat Star Wars Battlefront 2 without using a blaster? No, you can't. It takes at least 2 shots to beat, but it was still a blast to make and I recommend you try it yourself. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. See you later. And as always, if you liked what you see, make sure to like and subscribe for more future challenges to come. And thank you so much for watching.